Hello, dear scholars. Welcome to another history class. In today's lesson, you will learn about early Europeans that made contact with Nigeria. And under this topic, we are going to describe the nature of the early European contact with Nigeria, and we are going to identify the early Europeans that came to Nigeria. In the relationship between Europeans and Nigerian people in the pre-colonial era, it was the Europeans that ventured out of their continent to make contact with the Nigerian people. This contact, which began in the 15th century, was due to several reasons. And prominent among these reasons was the need to trade and to embark on scientific discoveries of areas that were formerly not known to the Europeans, and also there were some Europeans who were motivated by the need to spread Christianity to the people of Nigeria. Now, in the case of the early Europeans that came to Nigeria, they were categorized under three sets of individuals. They were mainly traders, explorers, and Christian missionaries. The first European travelers to reach Benin or Nigeria were the Portuguese explorers in about 1472. Now, when that contact was made, a strong trading relationship developed with the Edo people. The Edo people traded their tropical products such as ivory, pepper, and palm oil with the Portuguese for European goods such as manila and guns. When the Portuguese first landed in Nigeria, they immediately realized that they were in a land that was surprisingly similar to their own. The land was highly industrialized with systems in place for agriculture, arts, and other indigenous civilization in place. The country was ruled by four major kingdoms at that time. The Hausa and the Bonu kingdoms dominated the north, and the Oyo and the Benin dynasties were situated in the southern part of Nigeria. The Portuguese promptly established trade with Nigerians, mostly with the Benin people. They traded different commodities for their own, and including people, that is slave trade. Now, before the Europeans set their foot into Africa continent, slave trade was alive and it was prospering, and the Portuguese quickly became of this trade and they dived into it. Now, it is believed that during the first contact they made with the Nigerian people, they traded slaves with some of the Benin chiefs in Benin Kingdom, and it is estimated that as many as 3.5 million Africans were traded to Europe and eventually to the America. Now, the Portuguese, in their early trading relationship with the kingdoms, would trade by offering them clothes, copper, and brass, and after a few decades they eventually added cowrie shells to the trading economy as well. Over time, other Europeans such as Spain, the Dutch, Germans, the French, and the English also made contact with the Nigerian people. Now, let's talk about the reasons why the Europeans came to Nigeria. The first we are going to discuss is the zeal to discover more. And this was one of the major reasons why the Europeans came to Africa, and it was because they wanted to discover other parts of the world. The Europeans knew that they were not the only people that existed in the world, and there were other places that existed beside Europe. Now, with this knowledge and the burning desire to see these places, they began sailing the unknown and eventually found their way to Africa. Another reason why the Europeans came to Nigeria was for evangelism, and this was because, according to them, many Africans believed in the African traditional religion which they worshipped, and they worshipped lesser gods and poured liberation on these lesser gods. The European missionaries knew this, and in accordance with the principle of the Bible, which encourages Christians to go out and win souls for Christ, the European missionaries decided to do just as the Bible has instructed, and they came to Africa in order to spread Christianity to the African people, who embraced the religion with great enthusiasm. Another reason why they came to Africa was for trade. The Europeans came to Africa because they wanted to engage in trade with the people of Africa. The Europeans knew of how rich the African continent was in terms of natural resources, and so they decided to start trading with the people of the continent. And they would buy things such as salt, gold, and cocoa and sell to the people of Africa things such as guns, gunpowder, clothing, and so on. Now, the fourth reason why they came to Nigeria was to spread the Western education, and in doing so, they were able to teach the African people how to read and write. They also established several schools and colleges in the African continent, and they even developed the various languages that were spoken by the people of Africa by putting these languages into writing. The next we are going to discuss now is to talk about the different Europeans that visited Nigeria during this time under study. Like I've mentioned earlier, there were three categories of individuals that visited Nigeria from Europe at the time. The first one we talked about was the traders, the explorers, and then the missionaries. Talking about the explorers, because they were the first that ventured into Nigeria, we have prominent explorers from Europe that ventured into Nigeria. Among them are Mungo Park. He was a Scottish physician, and with the help of the England's African Society, he set off in search of the Niger and the fabled city of Telem. Mungo Park succeeded in exploring the upper course of the River Niger in 1796, and he assumes that the River Niger is part of the River Congo, which means that the River Niger and the River Congo at some point merge. Another explorer that came to Nigeria was Hugh Clapperton. The Lander brothers, which were Richard Lemon Lander and John Lander. We talk about European traders and merchants that visited Nigeria. The first we will talk now is George Taubman Goldie, John Oates, and among others. And some of the Christian missionaries who came to Nigeria include Mary Slessor, Bill Freeman, Samuel Bill, and Harry Townshend. These names I've mentioned, and among others, had great impact in shaping Nigeria as a country. And with this, we have come to the end of our class for today. Goodbye and stay safe.